Hey guys, it's Ashley from Next Adventure Films, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the first look. Now, the first look has totally gained popularity in the last few years. Back in 2010 when I got married, I don't think I had ever heard of a first look. And then by the time that I entered the wedding industry in 2015, it seemed to be definitely gaining in popularity. Now I've done a little bit more than 100 weddings, and I would say that of those, probably 30 to 35%, maybe up to 40% of all of those weddings have had a first look. Now, if you don't know what a first look is when the bride and groom see each other before the ceremony. They don't wait until the big walk down the aisle before they see each other, but they spend time to have a private moment to look at each other before the ceremony starts, and then they get their photos done before the ceremony. Now, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the pros and the cons of these two things, and then at the end, I will tell you what I personally would do if I were to redo my wedding. So let's start with the pros of doing a first look. I think the number one reason why people decide to do a first look is so that they can get all of their photos and video done before the ceremony. So when the ceremony is done, they can go to their cocktail hour and enjoy the party with their guests, rather than being off separate, trying to get through all of the photos after the ceremony. They want to get them done ahead of time. It definitely helps keep things on schedule for the rest of the night, like your introductions, your reception, all of those things start on time because all of your photos and video are done beforehand. So that would be the number one reason why people choose to do a first look. I think the other big reason people choose to do a first look is because not everybody feels super comfortable having that intense moment in front of so many people. People don't want to cry in front of other people. They just don't want to be ugly crying down the aisle, possibly. So if they can have that moment to themselves, I think sometimes people prefer that rather than it being on display for 100, 200 people to witness. And sometimes I think that the first look can be super special when it's just the two of them, rather than, you walk down this aisle and you get to start your ceremony, but then you don't really get to talk to each other because you're just kind of standing there. There's nothing to say to each other, and the ceremony starts, and you never really have that moment to kind of say, like, wow, like, okay, this is our wedding day, like, here it is. Because just the ceremony starts and you go forward, and then the ceremony ends, and then you're married, but now it's like photo time and all of that. So I think that sometimes couples like to have that first look ahead of time so that they can have that time to just kind of, the two of them, be like, okay, this is it, we're getting married, and just be able to appreciate that a little bit more. Now, some of the pros of not doing a first look and waiting to see each other as you walk down the aisle at the ceremony, I think the obvious reason is because this moment is kind of so iconic, especially in a girl's life. I think it does have a more of a more epic feel to it when everybody is standing up. You've got hundreds of people. You hear the chairs sliding on the floor. You can hear the people standing up, and you usually have music set to it, so it just feels a little bit more epic, I guess, when you're waiting until the start of the ceremony to see each other. I also tend to think that the groom and the bride are a little bit more emotional when they wait to the actual ceremony compared to a first look. I mean, I have had first looks that have been quite emotional, that they tear up, they cry, and it's been a really super sweet, special moment. But typically, the bigger, the more epic reactions, I think, are when you wait until the actual ceremony. Say what you will, maybe it seems like too much of a movie moment, but it's real. I think the groom sees his bride at the end of the aisle and is like kind of taken aback and breathless to say, wow, like there she is. And that just feels a little different than a first look. I think the other thing about waiting for the ceremony before you see each other, it's about the anticipation. Like maybe it's Christmas Eve and you're a kid and you cannot wait until the next morning is here and you can finally open up your presents, or you're just kind of like savoring the moment where it's the anticipation really that is some of the biggest part of the excitement for you. Now, what do I think is better to do? Well, I'm sorry to say I don't actually have a specific one way or the other answer of what you should do, because the answer really lies in what you prefer. Are you that person who has waited for this big moment of walking down the aisle, like the big reveal? Is that the moment that you have dreamed of and hoped for your whole life? If so, I would say waiting until the ceremony starts would be best for you. If that hasn't been such a big moment of something that you have dreamed of, then maybe the first look is better. Maybe to you, it's more important to spend time with your guests and be able to party with them and have the cocktail hour and, have those hors d'oeuvres that you've picked out. And that's more important to you than this big moment of walking down the aisle. Maybe then a first look is a better fit for you. Also, if you're gonna feel really uncomfortable walking down the aisle for the first time, seeing your groom and having everybody stare at you, and you're not really that comfortable with being the center of attention, then probably a first look is a good fit for you too. Because that first look hits a lot of those pros of, you get to have that private moment, not all of the attention is on you, and you get to have those photos and videos done ahead of time. What's really most important is that you are the most comfortable on your wedding day. If you're uncomfortable with everybody staring at you, go with the first look. If you're really looking forward to that big moment of that big reveal of you in your dress and the groom at the end of the aisle, then do that. And then your photographer and your videographer will make the schedule work. I know it's a huge pro to have the first look before the ceremony and you get all those photos and videos done ahead of time. But if that's going to take away from the moment that you've really dreamed of, then it's okay. Find a photographer and videographer who will make the schedule work and keep you on time for your reception. Now, what would I do? Well, I do have a preference. Actually, what I always tell people is that from a videographer perspective, I prefer the first look just because it is nice to get the photos and the video done before the ceremony. But if I was a bride and I was going to have my wedding again, what I would choose would be not to do a first look. Because for me, I am all about those big, epic, emotional movie moments. To me, the very best moment of my wedding and of my life was walking around those bushes at the wedding and seeing my groom for the first time and seeing his shoulders shake because he was crying as I was walking down the aisle. I never expected him to cry, but it just felt so special to me. And even though I never got to have those hors d'oeuvres at the cocktail hour, it was just so, I don't know what the first look would have been like because obviously we didn't do one, but it was just so special and I had built it up to be this epic moment of I cannot wait to walk down the aisle. So that was the moment that I wanted to have. So I'm very glad that we did that, even though I missed out on cocktail hour, and I'm still happy with all of the photos that we got after the ceremony. So that's my own personal preference. I will say that my biggest pet peeve when it comes to a first look or not a first look is when a photographer or videographer tries to convince a couple to do one thing or the other based on their own agenda. A lot of times I will see photographers or videographers say oh, you have to do a first look. And from a videographer perspective, doing a first look does make the day easier on us. It gives us more time to be able to do all the photos and the videos that we want. We're not under a time crunch. So it does make it easier. And then it's the hardest part of our day is over once the ceremony is done. But it's not about the photographer or the videographer and what's easiest on them. I want you to focus on what's important to you. Don't let a wedding vendor try to convince you to either have a certain moment or not have a certain moment based on what you're most comfortable with, because your wedding vendor should be able to work around what works best for you. So really it all comes back to what you are most comfortable with. What moment do you want to have? Do you want it to be private? Do you want it to be public? What's more important to you? Getting to your cocktail hour and just being able to relax for the night, or you really want to savor and have the anticipation of that big moment to come? Both are good. It just really depends on your personality and what you're going to be most comfortable with on your day. So I'd love to hear what you did. If you've already been married, what did you do? Tell me in the comments below. And are you happy with that decision? I hope brides and grooms can watch this video and use the information and maybe your comments below to help them decide what's the best fit for them on their wedding day. Thanks for watching, everybody. Be sure to check out some of my wedding videos and you can see some of these wonderful reactions, whether it's a first look or not a first look. If you found this video helpful, please click the like button and subscribe for more information coming this season. Happy wedding planning!